Well, hey, I'm excited to be meeting today with Lauren Lawson, who is going to talk to us a little bit about her both education and career path when it comes to engineering and also some of the unique things that she's doing today. So Lauren, great to have you with us today.
I appreciate it, Dan. And as you said, my name is Lauren and happy to be here.
Fantastic. So, hey, let's start. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your current occupation and career path as far as what you're doing today?
Certainly. So right now, what my role is I am a account manager at a company called Formosa Plastics. I'm currently living in the just outside of New York City area. So I live in New Jersey, but it's easier to say that I live in New York City because, not everyone's familiar with the area. But what I currently do is I handle chemical sales of polymers like polypropylene and polyethylene to end users like Mitsubishi and John Deere, who then make their products and sell to consumers in the buying atmosphere.
Wow, that's incredible. And so also, can you give us a little bit of your background prior to this? What had you done coming right out of college?
Right. So right out of college, I joined another company kind of in the same chemical sphere called Sazol, and I went straight into a rotational program because coming out of college, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to be doing, but this program kind of allowed me to rotate between groups like customer service, more research, actually being at a chemical plant, and marketing and sales. So that's kind of along the way is where I figured out that sales really was going to be the path that I wanted to take. And during that rotational program, I actually lived in Houston, Texas, which is the chemical headquarters pretty much in the US.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's what I hear too, is that anyone that's coming out that wants to go into chemical, you're heading to Texas probably to start off. But what a great first experience then for you to kind of get introduced to all those different areas to decide which one you wanted to focus on, huh?
It definitely was. And surprisingly enough, my time in customer service probably taught me the most during that time because, people are very unpredictable. So learning that and learning how to navigate situations that I'd never been experienced or, involved with in college, specifically with engineering, that kind of opened my eyes to kind of the rest of what engineering looks like and what, the chemical industry looks like.
So isn't it, for me, it's interesting that somebody who started off in engineering, and in fact, that's the next thing I want to talk about is that you went to college for engineering, but how did you decide on the school? Why did you decide engineering? What was it? Was it that you were like really into math and into science, or what kind of turned you on to the whole thing?
Yeah, so definitely the math and science portion of it, which is probably what you hear a lot of people that go into engineering say, but engineering for me was so interesting and attractive because it opened up so many other doors. Luckily, my older brother also went into chemical engineering, so I kind of had an example. He's only 2 years older though, so I never got to see really what an engineer is up until later. But seeing what he was doing and knowing that I could take all these different paths is really what drew me to engineering itself. Chemical engineering specifically because I always loved the chemistry part of it. I like being in the lab. I like working with my hands and doing things and making things happen. So that was kind of the two things that really drew me to it. Specifically Louisville. I looked at a couple other programs when I was choosing colleges, and the co-op program at Louisville is what really drew me to that school specifically because I wanted the opportunity to work and actually figure out what I wanted to do after college. And that really presented the perfect match for me. And that's really what allowed me to start figuring out what I wanted to be doing after the degrees were over.
And so because I know the University of Louisville has a 5-year program, right? So it's got the master's tied to it. Did you do that as well?
I did. So I have my bachelor's and my master's in both chemical engineering. And the way that the Louisville program works is you go either to school or working year round. So summers are involved. But the beautiful thing in that is the way the program is structured around your co-ops is you go to school for 4 semesters, and then for the next 6 or so semesters, you alternate between school and co-op. So every time that you would get sick of going to school, it's time for co-op and vice versa. And
That's
then
fantastic.
the
Yeah.
last year of the program is your master's.
Okay. So were there any surprises? I mean, the whole idea of going to school year round, did that throw you at all? Or you kind of knew going into it because of your brother? I mean, that for
Right.
sure helped, didn't it?
It did. The first summer is hard because, you see all of your non-engineering friends out in the world and doing things, but I would not change any of it for the world, because it really prepared me for after college, because there's no summer break when you're working in a normal or in a traditional setting. But it was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, it's and in fact, in my situation, I really do strongly promote colleges that offer the co-ops, because those that don't, it sounds like it can be a challenge to try to figure it out. You kind of almost have to do it on your own, versus this is really
Right.
part of the curriculum, isn't it?
It is, and that's the beautiful thing, is your professors understand. They're supporting you as you're looking for these co-ops while you're in school, and then the whole focus of a role after college is kind of the same thing. You've been there, you've applied to jobs before, you know what that process looks like, and you're not going from no experience interviewing and no experience in the working world straight out into a role that you're not sure that you're going to love.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I mean, I talk about that it's all about taking that potential career path for a test ride. Let's
Right.
hop in there and see what it's about. So to that extent, today, what do you love most about your job?
What I love most about my job is the people part of it.
Huh.
I don't want to harp on not being a traditional engineer, because there's no traditional engineer. But I always felt in my co-op experiences, and then when I was looking for roles after college, that I wasn't utilizing all of my skills. So I'm an extrovert at heart, and I wanted to be able to both keep my technical background and all the things that I learned with how to problem solve in engineering, and take that to the next level and see what I could do on, the more soft skills part of it. So that was kind of how I got from there to here. But now I get to make connections with people all day long, while still not, losing that engineering part of it and losing that chemical side, because I still get to do that.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I think so many times people think engineering, I'm just going to be in a cubicle someplace working all day long, crunching numbers or doing whatever. And you've really just, with your career path, you've shown that there's another way to pull it all together, because there has to be the technical. I mean, in your sales position, you have to know the technical side, don't you?
I do, and walking the walk and talking the talk. It's being able to do that at the same time is great. And my coworkers aren't all engineers, but there's a few of them that are, and I know it's a bit steeper of a learning path for those that aren't in our roles specifically, because you don't have that background. And it's a little tougher to talk with customers and to talk with your peers about solutions when you don't have that background.
Yeah, very interesting. So I have to ask, what do you like least about your job, if there's anything?
Is it wrong to also say people?
No, I
No.
believe it,
Like I said before, people are unpredictable, but I will say that my least favorite part about my job is because I'm still pretty new in my role and still pretty new in my career. I'm not getting quite as much on the technical side. So I'm actively working with both, internally and externally, to kind of get myself up to speed with my industry specifically, because in college you learn general chemistry a lot, and once you get out into the world, you're going to learn a lot on the job, no matter what you go into. And so learning more and more about my own industry and about my specific customers, each one is very different. So I'm looking forward to getting up to speed even more with all of them, and being able to have those technical discussions more in the future.
Yeah, so it's also the technical and the relationship building that you got to do, isn't it? Yeah, very interesting. So if you could change anything at all about your job, what would you change?
I travel more.
Oh, really?
I would. So my career, I only spent about 6 months in the working world before the pandemic started. And so I'm looking forward to doing my current role in an environment where I get to interact normally. I get to see people in person, and I get to go visit customer facilities and see what they do in person. And so traveling more would probably be on the list. And I have customers all over the country. So I've been to Chicago, I've been up to Michigan, down to North Carolina, out to California, but I'm looking forward to even more of that, because it is probably one of the biggest parts and one of the biggest perks of my job.
Without a doubt. Yeah. That sounds so cool to be able to go to these facilities and actually see how the materials that you're selling are getting transformed into these final products, right?
Exactly. And seeing it, go from something, a pellet or something in a rail car to what you see on the shelves or what you see on the dealership is a really cool experience, knowing that you had some hand in that.
Yeah, that's neat. That's really neat. So if you had to do it all over again, Lauren, would you still go to the same college and pursue the same degree and career path?
I absolutely would. So Louisville allowed me to take my base of my engineering knowledge and apply it however I wanted. And specifically with the co-op program, the traditional way to do co-op at Louisville is to spend all 3 rotations at the same company, possibly doing something along the same lines or rotation between groups. I elected to not do that. I kind of was all over the country in that aspect too. You might be figuring out that I like to travel all over the place.
I can tell. Yeah, that's awesome.
But I would absolutely do it all again, because it gave me the opportunity to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to live, how I could, exist in the working world as an adult as myself, and not have to feel like I have to, hide any part of me for my employer, for my professors. So it allowed me to grow up while I was still, in the college world.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, what a fantastic explanation of what you did. And hey, you took some risks. You decided to try some things out that maybe some of the other engineering students, they just kind of stayed on the straight and narrow. And you said, hey, I'm gonna experience what I can experience while I'm doing this. So in the engineering world, and I have to go back years ago when I first got into this industry, there was some challenges with being an engineer, specifically kind of a civil engineer, because the jobs were going overseas. A lot of those kinds of things were going overseas. But so my question would be, what do you see the future for your career path and or the industry as a whole?
So I personally think that engineering jobs are one of the most secure or in demand. We are always going to need people that are innovating and that are problem solving in every industry. And that's the beauty about engineering is it is applicable in everything. But as far as my career path, I'm still figuring it out, truthfully. If I stay down the current role, what I could be doing in the future is managing people. I could be continuing to do the same role that I have now, just in a larger way. And then my background also allows me to go completely in another path if I wanted to. I still have the engineering degrees. I still have the engineering knowledge and the brain and the way of thinking that many engineers have. So if I wanted to go back into a more traditional engineering route, I could. And I love that path is still open to me, because as much as I love my job, and my days are never the same. I never know what I want to, be doing in 10 years, frankly.
But that makes it exciting, doesn't it?
Because it does.
Every day is a unique opportunity to maybe tackle a new problem that's come up,
exactly.
or that complicated relationship with that person who got up on the wrong side of the bed and you got to calm them down or whatever, huh?
Definitely. And that's another thing that I love most about my job is I could spend the next 10 years doing the exact same job. No 2 days are ever going to be the same.
Yeah, that's really neat. So I kind of want to take this last question in 2 directions. What advice would you give to anybody who's considering going into both engineering in general and or your career path? That's number one. So think of these high school students that are out there that are contemplating it. For some of them, it sounds really cool to say, I'm going to go into engineering, like it does going into pre-med or whatever, right?
Right.
But give us kind of a reality check on that. What do you need to like and do to make that successful? And then the other part of that is, tell us how it is to be a female in engineering, for all those young ladies out there that are considering it, because, we definitely know we need more of them. So,
Yeah, as far as the general advice for people wanting to go into engineering, what I would say once you're in it, so we can start with that, is what you like and what you are interested in terms of classes or even your working experience is not going to be the same as your classmates. And that is perfectly okay. Some people like organic chemistry, some people like thermodynamics, some people like calculus. And what you like is going to be completely different than the person next to you. And that's perfectly okay. As far as getting into engineering, it's hard. A lot of the classes you might not love as much, or they're just difficult subjects. And sometimes it's not going to click for you the first time that you hear a subject, or the second time, or the third time. But just being able to look at problems in a unique way and taking a step back at times and saying, okay, I'm not getting this for whatever reason. Let me look at it a different way, or ask someone else to help you look at it in a different way. Asking for help is something that I so struggled with, probably my first 2 or 3 years of college, because I always felt like I needed to know everything the first time, or, I'd always been smart, so I should continue being this way, and I don't need help. That's not true. Asking for help is going to be the best thing that you could do for yourself. So that's the 2 things that I would recommend for anybody that's getting into engineering. And then specifically for a young woman looking to go into engineering, my current role, I work on a team of 15 people, and I'm the only woman.
Wow.
You will look around most days, and some type of ratio, you'll hear a lot of the word ratios. Stay the path, but don't feel like you have to be strong at every opportunity. Again, there's no part of yourself that you should feel like you have to, hide or sacrifice, and especially your femininity, to make it feel like you fit in. So that would be my advice, and just staying the path when it's hard. It's going to get hard at some point. Life throws curveballs, and adjusting and being versatile is going to be the thing that you can pride yourself on.
There's always going to be that one professor, right, that just makes your life miserable, or
Yep.
that one subject that's just not the fun thing to do, or maybe even that future employer that's just not the best person to work for. But it's those are all stepping stones, is what I'm hearing you say, to get to your end goal as far as what you want to do.
Right. And frankly, you learn more about yourself and what you want in the future from not negative experience, but bad bosses, professors that maybe aren't the best, or, working situations or college situations that weren't your favorite. You learn more about yourself in those situations than you do in something that's easy.
Yeah, very interesting. So to the extent of school for just a minute, how big a deal was math? You took a lot of math, didn't you?
I think all in all, I took like 7 calculus classes.
Wow. Yeah.
Math is a big deal. You reach a point in your college time where the numbers go away and it's just letters. So it becomes a lot more abstract and theoretical at certain points. But again, going back to seeing the big picture, but also little details, that's what you have to be able to do as an engineer, and as an engineer in your career too. So having that focus of both the smallest minute things and seeing how this affects, a bottom line, or, overall a plant, stuff like that. That's the important part.
So any final words of wisdom that you would give to anybody out there who's in high school considering going into engineering in general?
Don't feel like you have to have it all figured out immediately.
That's great.
That's, even if other people look like they have it all figured out, or they do have it all figured out, you don't have to. And that doesn't make you any less valid in your space, or doesn't make you any less deserved to be there.
Laura, that's such great advice because again, let's face it, the one question that a lot of students dread having people ask, well, it's two questions. Where are you going to school and what are you going to study? Right? And so just the ability to realize that there's going to be challenges, but if you just stick with it, if you just work through it, there's going to be incredible opportunities as well in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I cannot thank you enough for doing this interview with me today and helping other students that I'm working with who are considering this career path to understand all the different sides of it. And personally, I'm just super excited for you with all the things that you've got going on right now, and also the things you've yet to accomplish in the future. So, thank you again for doing this interview with me.
Of course, and always appreciate you reaching out to me about it.